Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bilco number KT190N. This is a replacement lifting mechanism. The KT190N is shown in the drawings that are attached in the S40 and S50 model. This is a spring that will ship to you pre-compressed. There is a pin that is run through the body, keeping it in a compressed state. There is a zip tie that's keeping it in position. They usually put a little tag, but not always, but indicating the spring power of the unit that's there. And the reason it ships to you in the pre-compressed state is so that you don't require any sort of a tool when you are installing the unit in order to get the spring compressed down. So obviously you're able to, if you're replacing one, you may not have a spring to begin with. They have in the past made a spring compression tool, but they discontinued that practice years ago. And the point of replacement of this material, and there is a link below this video to installation instructions, state that you're to open the lid to the full open position and then remove the top nut and bolt that are holding the existing unit together, but to be cautious, as it is spring-loaded. You know, if you sense that that's going to be problematic, you might consider removing the hold-open bracket to get the door open even further in order to safely remove the spring. I've never done it that way, but it occurs to me that you might have to consider that. Get the old spring off, reattach the hold open bracket should you need to, and then you'll go about attaching your new spring to the unit. Now, this is under compression because you will install it when the door is, you know, halfway point, 35 degrees, something like that, whatever the degree of open required to get these geometries to bolt back to the bracket and then this to the sidewall is how you'd go about doing it. The rest of the installation instructions: install new pre-compressed tube assembly. Do not pull the pin until the assembly is securely fastened to the unit. Attach bottom of tube to lower connection by aligning groove in tube with pin and tapping lightly with hammer. Let's go over these parts, as that's what the installation instructions are referring to. This is your bottom sidewall mounting bracket, or boot. And that's just going to connect just like that. And you'll have to tap that slightly to get it on. Okay. I have held that upside down. The bolts are supposed to be towards the top of the installation. It's supposed to go like that. I don't recall if I had put it that way or not. Or how else I would have put it. It's supposed to, the bolts are supposed to be up, there's no doubt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it the right way. This bottom boot is just made of a cast aluminum. Okay, you'll tap that in. You're also going to get with this, well, back to the installation instructions. Slide the bolt through the attached bottom of tube to lower connection by aligning groove in tube with pin and tapping lightly with hammer. And then step 7 of those installation instructions tells us to slide bolt through upper connection and secure with nut. Let's go back and take some dimensions of the bottom sidewall mounting bracket. Overall width, about 2 1/16. Overall height, about 1 7/8 inches, with a overall projection of about 1 5/8 inches. Center to center on those mounting screw holes appear to be about 1 1/16 inches. Then you're going to get these 2 upper brackets, and they are handed. You've got one of each hand. They're just going to be made of steel with a zinc dichromate plating over them, and you'll get those installed as it's shown in the drawing. Well, the drawing actually shows a different bracket. A different bracket that is actually a U-shaped bracket with the 2 mounting points inside of here. I don't see that bracket very often. However, the way that this KT190N has come from the factory is that you're going to mount it just like this. And then, of course, the upper assembly will mount with the brackets on either side, is how that's going to work. Take some dimensions of the lid mounting bracket. Overall depth, about 3 inch. Overall width, about 1 inch and 7/16. Overall projection, about 3 and 7/16. And once those two brackets, and if you're replacing one, you probably won't change these, although you certainly could. I wouldn't if there was nothing wrong with the ones that you have. Okay, you'll get those attached. Per step 7 in the installation instructions, you're going to slide the bolt through the upper connection and secure with nut. Cover may have to be maneuvered slightly to locate upper connection, sure. Now some fasteners. There should be a total of 7, I think. So you're going to get 2 hex screws, 2 hex cap screws, and 2 nuts. That will be for the sidewall bracket. That's 2 of them. Then you're going to get 4, I think these are 5/16 hex cap type fasteners. Those will be for the 2 brackets. Okay. Then finally, you'll get that bolt they're referring to, slide bolt through upper connection. That's going to obviously go through the 2 brackets and everything. And once everything is indeed installed and secured in place, and all the bolts are nice and tight, you'll then work to cut the nylon tie that's here, and then you'll control the lid and then pull the pin. And yes, it'll move, it'll snap ever so slightly, but it won't cause... It shouldn't cause any trouble. This would be obviously a 2-person job. Step 9, if replacing hold open arm washer, clamp arm to the arm guide. So if you're going to be working on the hold open arm, you'll continue on. Now as you scroll through the rest of the installation instructions, there are pictures of how all this goes together. It's an older set of installation instructions because they refer to that compression tool that's there. That's when the springs shipped non-compressed, and they obviously determined it was simply a more elegant way to ship them compressed. However, as a result, we're unable to really tell you what the length of the lifting mechanism is, which is an incredibly common question that we get. What length is it? I can tell you the length of the item when it's compressed. I don't know the length of the item either door fully open or fully closed. So be mindful of that. And let's proceed with dimensional properties of the KT190N itself. An absolute overall length going to be about 13 7/8. Just total overall length. The length of the tubes themselves, I'd say, would be about 12.5. Diameter of the upper tube, and the diameter of the tube doesn't narrow it down absolutely, but it does certainly narrow it down. Bilco has, 8 or 10 of these spring lifting mechanism variants. The outer diameter of the upper tube is 2.058. 2.058. The diameter of the lower tube is 1.591. 1.591. Okay. Now, a very common question, a series of common questions that we get are, what are the size? Is this going to work for my hatch? Things of that nature. So our intent with the video is to show you all the dimensional properties of everything that you get when you purchase the item, to allow you to determine whether or not it's an exact replacement. And if it's not, then send us photographs of your roof hatch. A serial number is very likely going to be present on the sidewall of the roof hatch itself. Absolutely send us that information, because with the serial number we can have the factory pull a bill of materials on the item to then determine the list of products that were used hardware-wise when that unit was originally manufactured. And that will remove any guesswork in that process. We get calls all the time. I need some replacement hardware for my roof hatch. Great. So we do try to start with an identification of the manufacturer of the roof hatch. Photographs sent to us are always a good idea, because it does allow us to draw on our experience to determine who's the manufacturer and then work in that direction. We also get calls from folks who state that they don't know the manufacturer of the roof hatch, and that's certainly very common. It's been there for 30 years. There's absolutely no identification. There are no identifying markings. There's no hardware left to determine what it is. The gasket's long worn away. But we can usually at least get a little bit closer to trying to figure out whose product it is, and then working towards that proper set of replacement products. We also get a scenario where people will call and be building their own and want guidance as to what they ought to use, and that's an area that we're not equipped with, trained, or otherwise proficient to be able to tell you what products to use, because we don't do any of the engineering on any of the products. So the factory is going to also not be able to participate in that conversation, because so many variables come into play when you're trying to create a balance or a relationship between the geometries of the hardware, the compression rate of the spring, the weight of the lid, the size of the lid. And the factory's not going to really engage in that sort of conversation because their design, their intent is to provide a safe operating environment. And something they've never engineered would be something they would not be interested in participating in. Reach out to us. We've got videos, we've got hardware. You might be able to determine if it works for your application, but these different lifting mechanisms, hold open brackets, hinges, locking handle assemblies, gasket, all of these parts are meant specifically for the manufacturer's product and nothing else. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bilco products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the KT190N 190-pound lifting mechanism or any other Bilco product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.